Welcome to the What's So Smart podcast, powered by the Huntsville Madison County Chamber of Commerce. I'm your host, Clark Dunn. Huntsville, Alabama is known as a smart place, but really, what's so smart about it? In this podcast, we will talk to the leaders of Huntsville's economic and cultural development to answer that question. From rockets to genomics, from cyber to music, What's So Smart will explore the visionary and data-driven initiatives that make Huntsville so smart. Stay connected with us on all your social media platforms at A Smart Place. You can watch the full conversations on our YouTube channel at Huntsville, Alabama, USA, and be sure to subscribe wherever you listen. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope you enjoy this episode of the What's So Smart podcast. Hey everyone, I am Clark with the What's So Smart podcast, and today I have the opportunity to sit down with Jody Singer, former director of the Marshall Space Flight Center, to learn a little bit more about what makes Huntsville so smart. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so I know that you're a Hartselle native, and you had a 38-long-year career at NASA. Talk a little bit about what would ultimately lead you to pursue that industrial engineering degree at Alabama and kind of where this story all first began.
As I say, I've always liked science and math, but not really knowing exactly what my career path would be. I had the opportunity to what they call shadow someone when I was in high school, and that person told me, they said, "Hey, if you really enjoy engineering or like that part of it, then you might want to do industrial engineering." And one of the key things they told me is, I said, when you get out, you being a female, you should be able to find a job pretty easy. So that's always music to your ear.
You're like, I definitely want a job.
Yeah, I want a job that pays.
Yeah, for sure.
And with that, it gave me an opportunity to see all the types of jobs that you can do as an engineer. And so that just really opened up, a lot of the mindset of what was the art of the possibility.
Yeah.
And I had different friends that some worked for NASA, some worked for industry. And as I was getting out of college, had that opportunity. First, it was to go work with General Motors for a little while, a little over a year. I did put an application into NASA, but NASA wasn't hiring at that point in time. And a year later, into my first job, then I had the opportunity where NASA called and said, would you like a job? And there you go. 38 years later.
The rest was history.
Yeah, the rest was history.
So was NASA always that kind of that dream job for you? Like as you were going through school and kind of doing this industrial engineering path, was the goal and the dream to work for NASA?
I had parents or friends of that had their parents that worked at NASA. And so I did a couple of times come over and visit. And I really thought, to be honest, that it was one of those things that might not be within my reach. I didn't know for sure, because I always thought about NASA. Ooh, you think of all the call lines, the right stuff, failure's not an option, cheating gravity, a lot of that. And so there was a little bit intimidating. Yeah. But I will tell you, I always watched and kept up with the space program and science. And so it was really a fun dream come true, even though it was one of those dreams I didn't know that would come true.
So you moved to Huntsville when you got that job for at the Marshall Space Flight Center. What was your knowledge or understanding of Huntsville at that time? And were you excited to move to Huntsville, or were you kind of like, I'm just excited to work for NASA and it just happens to be here in Huntsville?
Well, I was going to say the first place that I actually moved to when I moved back into, as you said, I'm a North Alabama native. Yeah. So I grew up in the Hartselle area. So I knew the general area. And when I moved back, I actually moved back to Decatur, Alabama, because of some family reasons, and spent about 25 years in Decatur. Oh, wow. However, but I always worked in Huntsville. Yeah. And I have watched Huntsville grow so much over my career. And I always knew that at some point in time, I think it would be a great opportunity to move to Huntsville. And it came about 11 years ago when my husband and I both worked at NASA and said, we'd like to be a little bit closer to NASA. Plus, there was a lot of things
growing,
going on.
The commute's coming a little longer. Yeah. Let's just get a little closer.
Let's just get a little closer. Plus, we saw how Huntsville was growing. And then I also have to admit, I had the birth of my first grandchild. So there's nothing like a grandchild and work that you kind of want to be in close proximity. So when we did that, we have not regretted it. We love living here and having our children. We've had all three of our children have moved back into the Huntsville area. And now we have 7 grandchildren and 1 grand dog
Wow.
that lives here. So it's really great being in Huntsville and seeing how Huntsville has changed and grown and really turned into an even better city.
Yeah. So besides, I mean, obviously work and family have kind of kept you here in Huntsville for a while. Is there any other elements about the Huntsville community or things you just love about being in Huntsville that have kind of allowed you to also kind of stay here and call this place home?
Oh, absolutely. It's one of those things when you can get some of the feeling of a larger city, but you still have a small town feel.
For sure.
And having those relationships mean a lot, particularly in the job I was in, and getting support from the community. Also, definitely the convenience of you can be anywhere, as Mayor Battle would like to say, in an average of 13 to 15 minutes. That's a great opportunity. Plus, just seeing how this city has morphed to support the workforce and the skills that we need in this area. It's just been amazing, from everything that you see from the Space and Rocket Center to the Orion Theater to everything that's going on. It's just amazing having major sports teams here. So it's the things that really draw you, because you got to live and work and love what you're doing, and it makes a big difference having the ability to have both.
Yeah, and I think that ecosystem that we've seen being created over the last few years to kind of support that live, work, play lifestyle, and having these new things like the Trash Pandas or the Huntsville City Football Club, or I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And I don't think it's going to slow down anytime soon. So you had a 38 long year career at NASA. You were the 14th director of the Marshall Space Flight Center, and you were the first female. Talking a little bit about just obviously Huntsville being known as the Rocket City, but what really is so smart just about the work that NASA does here at the Marshall Space Flight Center?
I'll always like to start with, there's we've had a heritage at NASA of working and cheating gravity, Rocket City. But all the programs that we work on, and if you'll bear with me just a second, I'll go through them. But, to me, the biggest part is the people. Yeah. We're nothing if we don't have a great skilled workforce. And to me, one of the best things about working in this area, and particularly in NASA, is the workforce. We have a dedicated, very smart workforce. We need an engineering workforce, and this area draws that. And because of the things that we were talking about, this area not only draws people, but it helps us retain them.
For sure.
And it gives people an opportunity to be a diverse workforce that we get to work and see and do many things. And as a result of it, I'm very proud that NASA, has a heritage, and we have a mixed portfolio. We're known for being Rocket City and then propulsion.
Yeah.
And we do that. We do launch from Apollo to the shuttle program to the things that we're doing on Commercial Crew, and now on the Space Launch System that we're definitely cheating gravity and going to the moon where we haven't been in 50 years. That's fantastic work that we do. And then also the work that Marshall does in living and working in space. There's a lot of activity that we do where we've been supporting Space Station for over 25 years.
Wow. And
the key to that is enabling folks to be able to live and work in space, the oxygen we breathe, the CO2 that we need removed from the air, the recycling, as we like to say. Today's coffee was yesterday's coffee too, and it could be tomorrow's coffee with the recycling, but that's important that we have that. And the science that we do. Marshall is Science Central, so the experiments, the research that we do, and all of that pays forward to us being able to go on to the moon. The other parts that I see that Marshall does is a lot of the technology, which we've been known for, is the technology that's game-changing. The game-changing things that need smart people, but it's things that we really haven't solved yet. We've been in low Earth orbit for a long time, but it's going to the moon and onto Mars, our ultimate destination, is going to have different systems, different transportation systems, nuclear power, the thermal nuclear power that we have to be able to go fast, the systems that we have to be able to live and work in space, the manufacturing, being able to have a landing site on the moon. There's a lot of that activity that we're counting on to be able to have that technology and the people that make it happen. So I think, the type of work that we do is inspirational. And to me, that's another big key of it, is the inspirational work that challenges our next generation of folks to do the impossible. It just makes us understand and challenge ourselves. And then the other thing that Marshall does too is our science work. we're known for our large observatories and things that we do that helps us understand our world and our planet, but there's also things that we're doing with climate change and understanding a lot about it. So there's just so many different pockets of understanding our world and what we're doing and how we're leading humanity to do things. So it really makes you feel like you're doing more than just for yourself.
Yeah.
You're kind of paying it back.
For sure.
And in the meantime, it's the folks that we train and pay it forward to get there.
And I think what's crazy to think about, like I obviously I didn't know about all those different things that happen just in our backyard. And I think that's one of the things that being in a community like Huntsville is and seeing the growth is you sometimes forget about all the unique things that Huntsville has going on for it.
Absolutely.
It's not just the things that we're doing to increase our ecosystem and kind of help Huntsville grow. We're doing a lot of support here in Huntsville that's supporting people all across the country, all across the world.
Absolutely. It is amazing. The space launch system alone, touches every state in the United States and, over 1,100 contractors. And that's small and large businesses. And that really is your economy.
Yeah.
So, it's something that Huntsville can be proud of, North Alabama, the entire state of Alabama and our nation. And it's fun to know you're part of doing something like that.
For sure. So with that in mind, what does this mean? What does that mean to you when you think of the current and future priorities of NASA and the space industry? Do you see it exceeding even the expectations that you thought it could be possible? Or is there just so much going on that it's just hard to wrap your head around just all the different things the future looks like for here at the Marshall Space Flight Center?
I just think there's so many opportunities. It is amazing. I mean, when we, in a few years, landing on the surface of Mars.
Yeah.
In the very near future, on Artemis 2, we'll be launching the first woman and first person of color that's ever gone to deep space.
Wow.
By Artemis 3, we'll be landing on the moon. So there's a lot of things that, to me, are just so exciting and challenging and are hard.
Yeah.
But it really makes it fun. It really makes it fun. And when you see how it pays forward, and hopefully, like I said, the biggest thing is the inspiration. It's just amazing. And then when I think about, the humanity, what it does for humanity, there's not a lot of jobs that you can say, I'm helping humankind in general.
Yeah.
Not only the science and the education and the jobs, but then helping our nation maintain and stay a leader in space. Having a seat at the table, being a global influencer, to me, that's critical. And again, I keep repeating it, but it's the STEM activity of how are we challenging the next generation to really do wonderful things and pay it forward. To me, that is what really makes it something, is the gift that keeps giving.
Yeah. So from your perspective, what makes Huntsville just such a smart place to be? I mean, it's not everything, not even just the work being done in the Marshall Space Flight Center, but like we mentioned earlier, there's so many other areas and pockets of Huntsville that have seen, that have a lot of smart people doing smart things.
Absolutely. I look at the Redstone Arsenal, all the folks that we have, the universities, the small businesses that we have are so invested in this community. And that's the key. They not only live here, they work here, but they invest in the community.
For sure.
And help keep it going. I see, because of that helps Huntsville stay, as I say, relevant. It helps us look forward to what is needed, anticipate it, and see what is needed and what will draw folks. And the technologies that's needed. And I think one of the big things, too, that I see that is wonderful for this whole Alabama area, and particularly North Alabama, I see so many of the mayors and the communities working together. It's not a competition, it is an and.
Yeah.
And because of that gives people options to live wherever they'd like to live, to be able to drive in a small amount of time, to work where they want to work and have the entertainment. And to me, that's as I call it, the ecosystem that makes it all work. And that's what's smart, is being able to work together and see what we need and how Huntsville and the area can grow. Yeah.
So thinking of through your career here in Huntsville and your career now as being retired, what's your favorite thing about living in Huntsville?
Wow. There's a lot of favorite things. I would definitely say the people and the community. Like I said, being part of a community that's still small but yet has a large feel to it. I think that is something that's great. Of course, I've got to say my grandchildren being in the area makes it. But there's a lot of that makes you want to live here and grow old here and retire here and be a part of it, just because of all the things and services that are here and the convenience.
Yeah. Thinking through your career, is there a unique moment or an encounter that you had with somebody, or an experience that you got to do that you always think about? Like, if you think through your career, like, I remember that moment, and it was such, like, I can't believe I was able to do that or be a part of that.
Well, I know you only asked me for one, but I can definitely think of two
There we go.
that flash in my brain.
Okay.
And the first is definitely having the opportunity to be the first center director that was a female at Marshall Space Flight Center. That is a dream come true. And it's one of the things that from this community from day one helped support me, support everything about what we were doing, and helping us support us go forward. That really ties to the second thing. That's I had over 110 launches with the Space Shuttle program. However, I'll have to say in 2022, having the first Artemis launch with the Space Launch System that we're responsible for at Marshall, seeing it take its first test flight and have a successful mission. And again, the community, the Space and Rocket Center, hosted the launch event, which was early in the morning. And then the Trash Pandas hosted the splashdown event for the Orion. And having the community and having everybody celebrate it and be such a part of it, and to know that the community itself was such a large part of that, that's one of those memories where, if you do it alone, that's one thing, but when you have such a broad community that's cheering you on, and a lot of that of getting ready to get to the launch was during the, right in the height of pandemic, which there were a lot of things that we were having to go through, not only from a pandemic standpoint, but trying to get first time flown hardware and going through development, and you have the ups and downs of new hardware development. And to have a cheering squad that was always there in this community, Huntsville, the Chamber, everyone being in our court really made a huge difference. And it's one of those things that you don't forget. And to have folks to celebrate it with makes it just extra special. For sure. And I think that's one of the unique things, I think, that still makes Huntsville such a have that hometown feel, even though it's growing so quickly. It's that the community, the people in it, they care, and they're willing to support you. And I think, I say it all the time. I think if you're in the community and you need help with something, you're trying to navigate something, being willing just to ask. Absolutely. I think you'll be shocked at just the responses you get. I think it's tough to sometimes ask in a community in the size of Huntsville is becoming. Huntsville is meeting metrics that people never thought were possible, but it still has that hometown feel, and I think that's such an important element of it, and it's something that we should continue to nurture and develop, because it's something that makes us unique. It's not just, hey, we're the biggest city in Alabama. It's, hey, we still have this hometown feel. Like, you're part of this community, and we're here for you. Absolutely. So, but I thank you for taking the time to talk with me today. It's been fun learning a little bit more about the Marshall Space Flight Center and your career there. And I continue to look forward to the success and everything that you will do in retirement, and being able to enjoy family and friends here in Huntsville. So thank you so much. Well, I love it. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the What's So Smart podcast. Stay connected with us on all your social media platforms at A Smart Place. You can watch the full conversations on our YouTube channel at Huntsville, Alabama, USA, and be sure to subscribe wherever you listen. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope you enjoyed hearing more about what makes Huntsville so smart.